Okay, so this is the Coyolxauhqui volcano stone that was down at the bottom for ritual killing. The discovery of this low relief sculpture was found in 1978 and set off a huge archaeological investigation in Mexico City. You can see how large this stone is and imagine all the bodies that were piled up on top of this stone, because this is where they would have rolled the bodies down the temple and they would have landed on top of this stone. The Aztecs participated in bloodletting and human sacrifices to please the gods and sustain a great cycle of the universe. So it was required in their minds, anyway, that they do all of this ritual sacrifice. The sacrificed bodies were hurled down the Temple Mayor stairs and landed on this disc, which depicted the murdered moon goddess Coyolxauhqui, or it's easier probably to call her bells on her face or bells on her cheeks. Huitzilopochtli, which was the brother of Coyolxauhqui. During the banner-raising celebration, gifts were offered to the deities. People danced and they ate tamales in celebration. And so if you're able to watch the Apocalypto video, it will show you exactly how this ceremony took place. During the rituals, war captives were painted blue, killed on the sacrificial stone, and bodies were rolled down the staircase to fall on top of this stone. And it's a reenactment of the story of Coyolxauhqui and Huitzilopochtli. So this is a close-up of what, or painted image of what the stone would have looked like. It would have been painted in these bright turquoise, red, and yellow colors, so we would have been able to see. And you can see she's decapitated here. Her head is broken away, her arms are broken away, and her legs are as well. So she's dismembered, she's separated from her torso, and pieces of her bones are even sticking out. So you can see the bones here and there. They're supposed to be little monster images. That's what those little bones sticking out. So this, in Aztec culture, this nakedness symbolizes humiliation and defeat. This is not, Grecian where nudity is beautiful. This is meant to be debasing and humiliating. Her breasts are showing. You can see the rolls around her belly. This is indicating that she was a mother. You can also see her belt, and where she's wearing this belt, and it's holding the skull. And she has lots of jewels around her. Look at her earrings, her elaborate earrings. Look at her elaborate headdress, her jewels around her waist, around her legs. She's very heavily decorated. And the little balls in her hair are probably cotton. It's there to just decorate her hair. So this is just showing the bells on her face. Let's go to the next one. These are where the breaks in her body. These are showing where the bones are sticking out, protruding. And this is showing where the belt is on this stone. It's interesting, I remember my research that there are several layers of this stone below, just like in the Temple Mayor, how we know there's 7 layers of that. There's several layers of stone below this stone when they were able to find it. This is just an image of the chalk mold, which would have had the offering there in his little, pot there on his stomach. And then this is a picture of the frogs on the side, the Coyolxauhqui side of the temple, depicting, rain and agriculture. This is a picture of the skull rack that was so important in their culture. This would have just been out. They would have had the skulls there always. We'll talk about the Olmec-style mask, which was found in the cache below the Temple Mayor. And we weren't able to talk about any of the Olmec culture, which was previous to the Tenochtitlan. But it was important to them, obviously. They had this buried down below the temple, and it shows us that cultures before them were just as important for them to remember them and to have ritual offerings. about them. So this mask is smaller than face size. It's not very large, and it's made of jade, which, as I said, was more precious to the Mesoamericans than gold, not just in Aztec culture, but also in the Mayans. So jade comes in all sorts of different colors, but this was the most valuable color, this blue-green color. It was highly, shined. You could get a nice burnish on the stone, which is what they wanted. So you can almost always tell an Olmec-style piece of art by the eyes, the closed eyes, the baby face mouth is what they call that, the wide nose. And then there's a cleft in his head, and that's not a part of the head itself. It's part of some headgear that he would have worn. And it's supposed to imitate sort of a jaguar. And they had this belief that there were were-jaguars before. It was a part of a race that was produced. You know how we think of a werewolf? This is a were-jaguar. So that's just properties of the Olmec style. You can almost always tell their images. So the green was important not just because it was beautiful, but also because it symbolized fertility for both humans, so that would have been great, to be able to have babies, but also fertility in crops, so that, lots of food, were able to feed us. And this was over 1,000 years older than any of the culture living at that time, and so obviously very precious to them. So interesting that we were able to find it down below.